Hi everybody, in this episode of Gaffer and Gear we're going to be looking at these. So this is a 3x3 diffusion frame. What's the big deal? Well, the big deal is the lights attached to it. Okay, so what is this thing? It's an Aladdin Fabric-Lite, and they come in 200 and 350 watt, and they're bi-colour units. So before we go any further, a very, very big thank you to Lemac Australia for trusting me with the only one they've got in the country. So this is on borrow at the moment. This is the 200 watt version. I'll be returning it to them on Tuesday. I have a 350 watt on order, so I'll be reviewing that later. I'm quite impressed with these. In fact, I'm actually going to order 2 of them. So I'll just talk you quickly through what I have here. Okay, so it's an Aladdin Fabric-Lite, which is this part here, which is actually a foldable mat. So it can actually fold up and fit into a bag this size. So this has the fabric mat, the controllers, all of your cables, everything fits into this little bag. So the idea is you could put this into a backpack, climb up a mountain, hold it up, and off you go, and you've got your key light or your fill light. Now, the concept of this is you can mount it to your existing, say, 3x3 blade frames. I didn't do that in this case because I found with the blade frames, when you're hanging them over the top, they tend to sag. So what I did in my case is I went to my local hardware store and bought some aluminium cube block and cut it to 3-foot lengths and bought some edge joiners. So that's what I've got here on the system. So that works relatively good and is very, very lightweight. So anyway, back to what we've got here. So this is an Aladdin Fabric-Lite 200, and it has on the front of it, it has a DOP choice snap bag or snap box. So it's got the DOP choice diffusion bag mounted onto the aluminium frame with the Aladdin light. Now, the thing that really drew me towards this unit was the weight of it. So the whole system I've got here, including my aluminium frames and a clamp to mount to my stands, the whole thing comes in at just a fraction, a couple of grams, just a fraction under 3 kilograms. So I've got a soft light that I can literally hold in my fingertips. So, you know, you might have had a night shoot or something like that, and you just wish you could bounce some poly in, but there's no sunlight to bounce. Well, no problem, we can just use this. So very, very lightweight, fantastic little unit. Mate, it's just gonna make some things in my life so much easier having these. Now I've taken the softbox off, and as you can see, it's a pretty straightforward concept. It is literally just a bi-colour mat. So at the moment that's the daylight LEDs, here are the tungsten. As you can see, there's lots of eyelets and it's Velcroed all around the edges on both sides of the mat to give you plenty of rigging options. If I was going to criticise it, hey, I might as well. The only criticism I've got of it is with the mounts, what would have made a lot more sense is if it had some elastic on the corners, like you have on your diffusions. So you could literally just put the elastic over the frame and slip it on. That would have been fantastic. So not a major criticism, but basically mounting this to the frame is quite time consuming. But you know, if you buy your own system, you can make up a frame, put some Velcro on this and slap it on straight away. Just have a look quickly at the softbox. This is a DOP choice softbox. It has the spaces in it, so we've got some fabric in here, and those spaces are to ensure that the fabric mat doesn't go right up against the diffuser and you start seeing the dots. So just going quickly over the controller, you got your built-in V-lock mount. You can also get them in, I think it's called gold mount. So yep, V-lock straight on there and you're off and running. No, you don't need to plug any cables in to run this thing off your battery. Other things, DMX in and out. So a lot of lights in this form factor, in this price range in this form factor, don't have DMX in and out. So you know, you're limited to manual control. On top of that, this also has built-in lumen radio. So if you're one of those rich gaffers who can afford a lumen radio system, I can't yet, hey, it's ready to go. So that's pretty cool. That's usually an additional $400 to $600 for a receiver, so there's some extra value chucked in there. Now I just plug get the transformer and stick that on. It's a bit of a beast of a transformer because it's a 200 watt light, but the transformer pretty much just goes onto the back, and then you Velcro it in. So it's got a little Velcro strap. Very hard to do one-handed. I'll just use my leg. Just be a sec. Okay, so that mounts onto the back quite easily, and the cabling system is very, very simple. It's just push locks. So you just push that in and it locks itself. Now, see that? Really simple. Another thing I like about this, okay, it comes with a cable to mount it to your stands. Pretty much everybody does that. And the problem you have is when you move the system around, the controllers fall off and break. But these guys have done something very, very simple. So simple, in fact, I'm surprised no one else has ever come up with the concept. And that is, it has a Velcro strap on the back. Just Velcro it to your stand. Now that's not going to come off. Okay, you can still rattle around, but it's not going to fall off your stand when someone bumps it, as opposed to not having that Velcro, off it comes. Okay, so let's take the transformer off and stick the V-Lock battery on. Okay, so one thing I'll do when I buy my own system is I'm not going to use the Velcro mount on the back because, as you can see, it's better than having separate bits floating around, but it is a little bit of a pain. What I'm actually going to do when I buy my systems is get these. You buy these on eBay. They're the spare parts from V-Lock batteries. So I'll buy one of these, stick it to the transformer, just super glue it, and then just mount the transformer directly to the V-Lock plate. So literally just clip on and clip off. That'll be very, very simple. So let's plug this thing into a battery. Now you're going to need a serious battery, okay, because it's a 200 watt light. So I'm using 260 watt hour batteries. So literally just onto it, very simple. Oh, another thing to point out, I just keep seeing things, a serious size thread mount. So you could put this onto a super clamp onto your light stand, for example, or if you're rigging it, you've got a rigging point. Okay, so that's cool. Now the lamp head, again, simple push connectors. Okay, so push it down, it connects, simple as that, and fire it up. Now, one thing I've got to say I do like about this controller compared to the previous units is it is actually calibrated. One thing I don't like about it is it's very finicky finding an exact color temperature. So let's say I want to find 3200, it can be a bit finicky finding it because it is, calibrated to, oh, I got it, 3200. It's very finicky. 1 mil, you can jump 7 degrees Kelvin. It's quite hard to get a precise color temperature fast, but it is calibrated. Now, in terms of how accurate the calibration is, these are my measurements. It is accurate to 52 degrees Kelvin, right across the range, up to 5,800 degrees Kelvin. Now, to give you some idea, other lights in this sort of form factor are usually accurate to about 250 to 300 degrees Kelvin. Now, this is accurate, I say, up to 5,800 degrees Kelvin. According to the dial here, it goes up to 6,100 degrees Kelvin, but this unit does not get up to 6,100 degrees Kelvin. It only gets up to, 5,831. So when you get to 5,800 on the dial and you go up to 6,100, there's only a 31 degree Kelvin shift. So above 5,800, the display is pretty much talking crap. But below that, it is super accurate. It is very, very accurate, impressively accurate. So look, I'm pretty happy with the controller. Again, calibrated, so if you had a look at Aladdin in the past, you would have been disappointed with the analog controllers. They've really taken that on board. Great little controller, very reliable, very accurate. Oh, the dimmer, that's something I haven't mentioned there. The dimmer is super, super smooth. Check this out, very super smooth. You could do live action fade ups with this dimmer. It is incredibly smooth. Okay, so before we go any further, once again, a massive thank you to Lemac for trusting me with the only one they've got and for letting me borrow it for the week, which has actually turned into 2 weeks because I don't want to let go of it just yet. Sorry, Rick, But hey, look, use it as a testimonial as to what how I think these units are. Now for me, the 200 watt, this version here, really isn't bright enough. That's why I'm ordering 350s. If you're a couple of meters away from your talent and you're shooting, say, in a living room or a kitchen, and there's ambient daylight coming through the windows, like on a sunny day, this unit's good as a fill light. It is quite a nice passive invisible fill light, but it's not quite bright enough to be a key. So I found myself using this as a key, wanting to push it in a little bit closer to the talent. But I think with the 350, it'll be the opposite. I'll be dimming it a bit. So that's why I'm ordering the 350s, not the 200. But look, if you're going to use it as a key light for interviews and say you're going to have it this close to the talent so that it wraps around and gives you a beautiful soft light, the 200 is more than enough. Where I've used this predominantly this week is for product shots, because I'll have a product and I can get this over the top of it. Really, really super easy. It's probably saved me 10 to 15 minutes setup time per setup on product shots. It's just super quick for that. And the other thing we found where this is really, really good is if you need a low soft light for your talent. This is really simple. You just like put it on the ground and bang, off you go. Whereas before I had to bounce another light off a polystyrene board or put another light through a frame. This was super simple. Now, one thing I'm going to explain, a few people are going to be confused as to why I'm spending this sort of money, and one of these is $4,700. Now that sounds like a lot of money for a flexible panel, but when we get into the stats in a moment, you'll see you're paying for quality. The reason I'm going to spend that sort of money on bicolor, when if I wait probably another 6 to 9 months, RGB will be out. For me, I've made the decision to go bicolor because of how I use this form factor. I'm not using this form factor because I can fold it up and stick it into a small bag and take it on an aeroplane. I use this form factor because it's lightweight. I can boom lights out on C-stand arms, on menace arms, and they're so lightweight we don't have to lock them or tie them down. We can just make little adjustments as we're going, saves a heap of time, and I get light fixtures where I couldn't possibly get them before. So what has that got to do with RGB versus bicolor? If these things were RGB, they would have more color emitters in them. Okay, they'd have warm white, cool white, RGB. Okay, so the matte would be over twice as heavy. Now, whilst that's not a huge amount of weight, it might only add up to about 1 kilogram, on the end of a boom arm, that kilogram is all the difference between being able to boom it out and not being able to boom it out. And that kilogram is also the difference between being able to tape a light to a ceiling or tape it to a wall and not being able to. So how does this matte go in terms of color rendering? Well, it is actually superb. I took 33 measurements at 100 Kelvin increments just to see how accurate it is. Now, the lowest TLCI score I came across was 98.1. The highest TLCI score I came across was 98.8. So overall, this thing averaged 98.5. That's its average TLCI score. So that's pretty impressive. But that's not why I'm interested in buying them. I don't really care much about TLCI scores. What I care about is TN30 scores, the color vector testing. Now this unit in color vector testing scored 95 plus across the entire range, which is extremely unusual for any LED. Bicolor, RGB, whatever, it is extremely unusual to have a TN30 score that high. Okay, so how does this unit go in terms of generating pure whites? Well, at 3200 Kelvin, it is slightly pink, pretty much like all warm white LED light emitters at the moment, regardless of brand. It is slightly pink and no different to all the others. A gel's targeting test reveals that you would need a 246 correction gel to get this back to pure tungsten. Now, I wouldn't bother with that because it'll match all your other warm white LEDs perfectly. Now, in your mid whites, 4300 Kelvin, the same thing applies. As you can see by the color mapping, it is off the Planckian curve towards pink, and the gel's targeting test reveals you'd need a 246 gel to correct. Now, this is where this unit is incredibly unusual, especially for a bicolor unit. In terms of daylight, 5600 Kelvin, this thing hits pure white. It is smack on the Planckian curve. Have a look at this. Let's zoom in a bit just to be certain. I'm still not convinced. Let's zoom in a little bit more. Okay, now I'm convinced. So that's why I got really excited about these. When I ran a meter over it, I thought the meter was playing up, because no way is a bicolor light that accurate without an RGB mix, but somebody's put a lot of effort into getting the daylight phosphor correct on these. Now let's have a closer look at our more common usage CCTs. Here is the color spectrum for 3200 degrees Kelvin. These are the CRI results. These are the results for the TM30 color test. Now let's have a look at 4300 degrees Kelvin. Here is the color spectrum. Here is the TM30 results. Here is the CRI results. Now for 5600 degrees Kelvin. Here are the CRI results. These are the TM30 scores. And here is the color spectrum. Now before we go, I just want to show you how versatile this system is, particularly with the eyelets. So I'm going to use 3M command hooks, these are removable, to temporarily mount this to a wall with its softbox. I'm Andrew Locke, see you on the next episode of Gaffering Gear.